live. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about The Immigrant. And I would actually like all of us to go around and maybe say your name and the role you have at Theater 3 or the role that you had in the show. So let's start with Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie Beers. I'm the executive director here at Theater 3. My role with The Immigrant was pretty indirect. I had a lot more to do with just making sure that everyone was contract compliant and COVID compliant and safety compliant. And the biggest struggle for me is that I had to stay out of the room. I was still working in the office, but I wasn't allowed to be anywhere near anyone, which was odd.
For sure. Let's move over to Ben.
Hi guys, I'm Ben. I played Haskell Harlick in The Immigrant. That's it.
All right. Let's go down to Krista. Oh, and Krista, I think that you might be muted.
Of course I am. I'm Krista Scott. I played Ima Perry in The Immigrant.
Wonderful. And Jenna?
I'm Jenna. I played Leia in The Immigrant.
And Jeffrey?
Every time someone does the mute thing, all I can think about was my grandfather, who died many years ago, but he had major hearing problems and people would always mess with him. They would mouth like they were talking, so they would think he was like the kid was getting worse. This is so terrible.
No.
Anyway, I'm Jeffrey Schmidt. I'm the artistic director at Theater 3, and I directed The Immigrant.
All right. Let's just jump right in. So why did Theater 3 decide to produce The Immigrant again this winter? This will be a question for Charlie and Jeffrey.
Do you want to start, Jeff?
Sure. I think perhaps the biggest reason is how incredibly damn proud we are of the show. And we just want as many people to see it as possible. That's one of the biggest reasons. Charlie?
Part of being an early adopter with digital theater is that no one knew what to expect, and it wasn't as consumed as we would have liked it to be. And I know that there are lots of people in the community who have expressed interest in seeing it if it were to re-air, and we really couldn't think of a better time than to re-air it right at the start of Hanukkah this winter.
Yeah, totally agree. Tell me a little bit about the research that you did before starting the process. Let's start with the cast, and then I'll go to Jeffrey. So cast, what research did you do before starting this process?
I'll go on this. Well, research. I would have to say that a lot of the research was done during the rehearsal process because we kind of jumped into this like full force really suddenly. And a lot of the help came from Dante, our dramaturge. Oh my gosh. Names. Yeah, Randy, thank you. Oh my gosh, he's gonna hate me. Randy, who helped out a lot with Jewish history and Jewish practices, that really helped out. And without them, I would have been an absolute mess who knew nothing. So yeah.
I'm just gonna build on that. I knew about this a lot longer than everyone else, so I had more time to prepare. But I felt like y'all made this so easy. I felt like the research was like spoon-fed to us because there was just Dante did so much. I read just like everything that he sent. It was amazing and like learned a lot. I feel like a lot of what I learned in school was like, you know, the Holocaust, and I didn't know anything about like the persecution of Jews in Russia, like in the 1800s, like it was going on. Maybe I should know that. But anyway, I learned a lot. And then there was just so much access to all the stuff that they sent, all of the Yiddish dialect work. Like which is my favorite. But I didn't feel like we had to do too much digging. We just had to read it and work on it, and that was cool.
That is really cool. Dante is the best. I love reading all of his dramaturgical pamphlets that he sends in. He just does the best research, and I love his writing. How about you, Krista?
I guess I did more research because I was doing the dialect coaching for the Jewish Russian dialect, and the Texas dialect as well. So I was doing research for that region of Texas particularly, and then also for the Russian Yiddish. But really, Randy did most of the actual pronunciation of the Yiddish in the Shabbat, and all of that was done by Randy, and then I was just dealing with more of the dialogue for that. So that was my research, really. I guess I research into my own background because I have grandparents a lot like Milton and Ima Perry, and so that kind of came naturally.
I feel you. I saw a lot of my grandfather in those two people specifically when I watched it. Jeffrey, what about you?
Yeah, for sure. Randy and Dante were invaluable when it came to, especially in that it was fun, sort of real time to be able to access them. And there's an advantage of how we rehearsed via Zoom. We could shoot off an email really quick and get an answer back while we were still in rehearsal versus, if we were at the theater rehearsing and, oh, let's bring Randy in for an hour long thing. No, it was like, oh, got an answer. Now let's work on that. It was really great to have access to them. I actually travel through Hamilton, the town where it takes, quite often, and the whole year leading up to this. When I would travel through, I'd take some extra time to sort of scout up this town square, because obviously the town square is still there. It's the seat of Hamilton County, Hamilton, Texas is, and so I think I finally sort of pinpointed where Haskell's store is in the square. It's not there anymore. I was able to figure that out. There's a small museum on the square that has some really good information. Actually, Dante took a trip down there too.
Oh, that's cool.
I think the most interesting part of my research is indirect research. A book that I was reading that actually finds its way into the curtain speech a fair amount. It's called Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynn. Anyone who knows me is tired of me talking about this book. I just love this book so much. But it's about the rule of the Comanches, the amazing rule of the Comanches for such a long time, and then their decline. And the book sort of finishes where this story starts in the 1910s in Texas. And the Comanches they ruled Texas for such a long time. And so it was really interesting to get that information, knowing full well that the people who lived in this town experienced that, and either experienced it or were direct descendants of those people who pioneered this country, at least white settlers who pioneered this country. And that informed a lot of my directing choices and my design choices, knowing all of that history leading up to this story that's based on a true account.
That sounds really interesting. I'd actually really like to read that book.
Really
could you
great.
say the title of it again?
Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynn. He's a Texas-based writer. I'm probably going to get this wrong. He maybe was an editor for the Austin Statesman or a Texas publication. He worked for a long time. So I'm probably wrong on saying that. But I know he's a Texas writer and journalist by trade. So it's really great. It has a narrative vibe. So it's not, if you're not into dry history books. That's not what this is, sort of in the vein of like a Stephen Ambrose.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really good. So The Immigrant was, I thought, and I'm sure everyone agrees, it was a piece of art, and it was the first time that Theater 3 has tried something like this. We've talked a little bit about the process on Jeffrey's end, I think, in a previous stream, but I'm curious to hear about what the process was like for the performers, and from Charlie, because we haven't heard from Charlie about this either. But let's start with performers. How was adjusting to this process?
Well, it was a lot, because there was a lot of stuff that was being thrown at you, and I do have to say, as somebody who had never done film before, I was terrified because I had to learn Yiddish, a Jewish Russian accent, and have to go in to a green screen and for the first time ever just imagine everything that's supposed to be there. But I do have to say that Theater 3 made it a lot easier than it should have been. Like Jeff at the beginning told us what was going to happen, and I was like, oh my gosh, how is this going to work? And they made it work. They did. And I think it's absolutely outstanding how quickly Theater 3 just went, okay, shifting gears. This is happening right now, so we're going to do it full force. It blew me away. Yeah.
Me too. For sure, me too. How about you, Jenna?
Krista, did you want to go first? You look ready. Okay. So I was kind of surprised, like how much of it felt the same. I wrote a blog about my experience with this. The weirdest thing for me.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. The weirdest thing for me was like the tripods with the eyes on it, that we like weren't looking at each other. Like I did a Meisner intensive last summer, and like I have very little acting training. That's most of it was last summer, and the whole thing is like take each other in, like really look at each other, like see everything that's going on their face, and like all of this. It's so much like put all of your focus on the other person and be affected by them. And then I was like, well, I have a voice to hear and listen to and respond to. And I mean, it was just different. It was still, I don't know, it still worked, but like I felt that was the weirdest part for me. The rest of it was not, I don't know, I didn't feel like it was that hard to adjust to. It was just different, but fun and exciting. Yeah. You go.
What was interesting was rehearsing on Zoom. So we met one time in person, and that was out at what's the name of the park? Samuel's Park.
Grand, yeah.
Park, yeah. So, and we were, 20 feet apart about just to run lines. And that was the Saturday before we started to film. But before that, we were rehearsing totally on Zoom. And so it was interesting because at first we were trying to set up, the angles that we might be talking to people. So, okay, so Krista, you're going to face this way, and Jenna's going to face this way when you talk to, and as an actor on stage, you're used to looking at your partner and talking to them, not pretending that they're in front of the wall. It was good practice for then when we only had the eyes on the stands, the tripods to work with. But at the same time, it was like, oh, this is odd to have this person. I know that this person is right there on the camera, but I'm going to talk to them here. And it got very confusing. And then working on the green screen, a couple of things. It was, you didn't have the tech rehearsal to kind of get things figured out. We were just, you go into it, you go into the filming, and we got to practice here or there a little bit, but you don't have that tech time where you get to really flesh everything out. You've got the costumes on and you've got all the tech stuff to get used to for a couple of days. And so that was interesting. And when we got to watch it, it was like, oh God, my eye line was wrong on that part. And what happened? Oh gosh, could I just do it again? So you've been having control of that. But the other thing was that when we were rehearsing, while one person was on the green screen, while they were being filmed, the rest of us were dispersed with our masks on throughout the house of the theater and throwing the lines in the scenes. And so you had to still be, even though I'm sitting in the house while Jenna's being filmed, I need to be a part of that scene. I need to give her enough vocally to play off of. And so you still have to be there. You still have to act. You're just not in the scene literally with them, but you still have to give everything to them that you can, and try to be consistent with it so that the filming between each take of each person is consistent in timing. So it was challenging. It was fun.
It is.
I try to explain often to people who aren't theater people, like on the broadcast side, one of the things I often say is that, well, actors are their own editor. That they are their own editor on stage, and that is hard to relinquish in this process. To Krista's point, you don't get to see the final, until it's done. You're like, oh God, I wish this would have happened. I wish that would have happened. It's really difficult, and it's actually on the opposite side. It's frustrating sometimes for theater people filming, because you'll get directors on the film side that say, slow down, we'll take care of that in the edit. Like, don't jump on people's lines. Don't do this, don't do that. And like for theater people, it's like, no, that is my job. I found too that the rehearsing in Zoom, one, we've learned since this process that a lot of the blocking we did in the Immigrant were like, okay, you're going to look this way, you're going to look that way in rehearsal, that as time has moved on, we do less and less of that. And we wait till we start filming. Because it was, I don't know how useful all of it was, we've learned that you just don't need as much. And, typically we rehearse live sometimes, like on the weekends, we'll do 6-8 hour rehearsal days. You just can't do that in this format. No one can rehearse via Zoom for 8 hours. It's not productive, too much.
Tell that to my teacher.
Oh, that is so true, though. And I want to go back to what you said in just a moment, Jeffrey. But I'd like to hear, Charlie, how has your job did a little bit since we put the Immigrant on? Like, how did that have to shift?
So my job and our company manager, Sarah Barnes's job, we are kind of in perpetual season planning. Normally we can negotiate contracts and all of the prep work so that when actors arrive, everything's taken care of and they get their first paycheck, and all those wonderful, background admin things that have to happen, and they're not as sexy as what happens on stage, but are just as important. It is now in constant flux. We don't normally, we know the whole season, who's doing what role, who's working on what, and now it started with the Immigrant of like, cool, can we do this? Can we get the union's permission? Can we get the publisher? Is the publisher going to let us do this? Do we have the technical support to be able to actually get this into people's homes? All of that work, and it just kind of blows up for a moment, and since then some of it's become routine. as a staff, we've learned a lot about what our systems are capable of. And then we also deal with a lot of stakeholders, not just our subscribers and our donors that sometimes get frustrated with how complicated the system is, but the actual system provider and publishers, where everyone, like patrons, want to be able to access it easier. And of course, everyone who has part of the rights or royalties wants to make sure that their content is secure, and the Actors Union wants to make sure that actors are protected, and we're in this job has become much more active in that this medium is new. So there isn't a rule book. Normally we just go and look it up in on the FAQ sheet or in the actor handbook and go, oh, this is what the rule is, so we have to do this thing. There is no rule book anymore. It's kind of the Wild West, which was also kind of fun with The Immigrant, that we're kind of set in this like pioneering time, and we're kind of in this digital pioneering time.
Oh, that's true. I want to hop back over to what Jeffrey said just a second ago. So Theater 3 has done a Halloween virtual offering at this point. We're working on the holiday one, and I'm wondering if you could go back and do The Immigrant again. How would there be anything different that you would do?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know if there is anything I do differently. You know, was the process perfect? I don't think so, but for the time and the knowledge we had, I don't know if I would change anything about the whole thing, because there's not much to change because there are so many limitations placed on us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with regards to COVID, and hell, even at the time we were in a curfew. Dallas was under curfew at the time. We had a lot of restrictions placed on us. So I could say, oh, I wish we would have done this. I wish we could have done that, but we wouldn't have been allowed to. So I think we got pretty damn close to perfection in the process. You know, I'm sure it's always up to debate whether the product is perfection, but I think the process was pretty damn perfect for what we were allowed to do. Nothing is popping out to me. I bet you the actors probably like under their breath, well, I wish I would have done this. But I don't think so. We had a good staff. We had good designers, all learning on the fly, and I think the testament to it is our editor, who is a professional editor, had no major complaints in regards to what we sent him. Was sort of blown away by the performances, and so on the technical side and then on the artistic side, what he was seeing was pretty damn impressive. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. If I can be so frank, I think that this is one of the best digital offerings that I've seen. It was just so new. It made me cry. I don't know. This was a beautiful, beautiful production. I'm excited to see it again. And I actually want to pop over. I have another question, but I want to pop over to a comment that just came in from Mary Brewer. She says, hello, beautiful people. And then she says, it's been my favorite COVID times digital offering. I think it was wonderful. Talk about how much the playwright enjoyed it.
He did. He really did.
Liked it.
Yeah. Mark liked it a whole lot. He reached out to me. Doesn't live here. Lives I'm in California. And he started the compliment like so many other people started the compliment. I didn't expect to like this. And he loved it. And that's because at the time you know, in May, June, when people were just beginning, theaters were beginning, and other performing arts organizations were beginning to crank out new streaming offerings, not just recordings of things they've done in the past. People were really skeptical about it and how each organization was going to pull it off. And that's understandable. And we won a lot of people over with this, including Mark, who really enjoyed it. And the performances, he said everything, he wasn't sure if those performances were really going to translate to the screen, but they did. And that's one of the best parts about this. It's not the green screen technology. It's not the renderings behind people, or the fact that everyone was isolated. It was that the performances were so very good, and we were able to capture those in an intimate way, which is. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, I was saying it. Not just Mark, but there were other members of his family that made it a point to watch, that commented on exactly that the intimacy, and that it felt like some of the stories that they grew up hearing about their family members, that they kind of like, it was that close and that intimate that they also resonated. That was an email that also came through, I believe, from one of Mark's brothers, if I got the relation correct. But
yeah.
That is so cool. I just love that. Okay,
I've seen a lot of. I mean, the family has, and Mark has seen a whole lot of productions of this. I mean, back in the early '90s, it was one of the most produced plays in the country, and then it just sort of ran its course, like so many popular shows do. They ebb and flow, and you don't see as many productions now. But he had seen a lot, so for him to even reach out and comment, I think is a big deal.
Totally, I think so. Absolutely. I was really interested looking into Mark Hara. Like, I didn't realize that he was such an established performer either. That's a little bit off topic, but I thought that was really, really interesting. But so I'm wondering, do all of you guys have a favorite moment or a moment that resonated with you in the production once you saw it?
Well, my favorite moment was the scene with Jenna and cooking, preparing the stew together, and having that nice long piece of dialogue and that scene to go through, where we get to know each other and come to know each other's minds, because we're both women and we both have a lot more in common than we have different. And even though we're different generations and all as well, but yeah, it was just fun to do that scene, and I would love to do it on stage now. I really want to do the show on stage, so that those moments could be even that much more fulfilling, emotionally fulfilling. For me, I'm being selfish as an actor, but I would like to have those things where we actually get to play off of each other in real time in the same space. But that was my favorite.
Okay, I'll go. So I don't know about when I saw it, but the scene that was like, I think the easiest, well, I don't know if I should say easiest. My first scene with Ben, where they're like fighting because he's, well, maybe I shouldn't say spoilers. I don't know. They're arguing though, because they have a difference in like their values. And I'm like, oh, as a 20-something-year-old, like, who hasn't been in a relationship that didn't work out because you had this argument of like, you just aren't seeing eye to eye, and it's so frustrating. And like, that is, I think, like, such a universal experience. And like, I am someone who I believe in God, and my faith is important to me. And I feel like I've had that conversation, and Like, yeah, that moment, I get it.
I think it's interesting. I share the same. That's my favorite moment, but from a slightly different perspective. It's the being so far from home. Like this character has left their family, left everything behind, and so much of that scene speaks from the two characters that have a different outlook, right? Like one of them is very afraid to be in a place that is so different, where they don't have the support network and this their culture surrounding them, and the other is so hopeful at the opportunity. And that whole scene is very beautiful in that both of those realities are vivid and real, and we all experience them in different moments in our lives. But in that moment, in that relationship, they're at odds with each other, because one character needs to be comforted and the other one needs to be encouraged to not be afraid and to tread that path and go and succeed. It's a beautiful moment, especially for a young person to sit there and see that, you know, if you stick to it, if you have a partner, if you have someone who's gonna support you, you can do it. You can, whatever it is you set your mind to, you can achieve it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I wanted everybody else to go, because finding one scene for me or one moment of the play, it's like, for me, there's so many moments that I love. Like each working with Krista, Adrian, and Jenna was such like a, oh man, I'm gonna cry. It was great, and I do have to say that I think my favorite moment is, I'm just gonna say, I think my favorite moment is this part of the play where it's after the dinner scene, and Adrian and I just fought, and it's kind of, it's the climax has happened and it's coming towards the resolution, and I think it just, I love the scene that me and Jenna have towards the end where we're kind of tired of it all, and she's like, hey, come on, we'll come say hi to them. There's something about that scene that I love so much. And of course, scene after that, there's so much that I love about it. I love that all four of us are in it. I love that all four of the characters are trying to get something from the other. It's great, and I practiced that monologue so many times, and the amount of nights that I've just were in my room weeping, like, and it makes me remember awesome moments off stage, like when I did it the first time, and then Jeff was like, oh yeah, that's really good, and everyone around us was like, yeah, that's great, and Jeff was like, yeah, but can we, like, I don't know, can you handle this note? I don't know. And I was like, yes, I can handle the note, Jeff, give it to me. And I'm like a sobbing mess, and he's like, okay, well, here you go. You know, and I feel like it's just moments like that that makes me so happy. So definitely the scene with where we see Ima and Milton again. Yeah.
What about you, Jeffrey?
Well, making Ben cry is high on my list of favorite. It is hard to pick one thing. I've got several moments for different reasons. You know, Jenny, that scene, that first scene we see you in, the traveling. We talked a lot about that. You traveled so far to get there, and everything that was weighing down on your shoulders. I mean, she was a girl of 17 at the time, right? 17, 18, who had to leave Russia under the hoofbeats of the Cossacks chasing and persecuting Jews, had to cross through other countries to get to a train, to get to a boat, to cross the Atlantic, to travel down the coast, to go into the Gulf, make it there. I mean, that is, you know, if you casually think about that, you go, wow, it was unbelievable 150 years ago what people had to do to get to this country. And then you think about that a little longer and you go, that is still happening. And so there are moments in the show like that. The moment during the dinner scene where Krista, your character, brings up America first as the two guys are fighting about isolationism versus being involved. There's so many moments that ring true now that are my favorites. But the other thing I love about this piece is how incredibly well structured it is. That dinner scene is the longest scene in the show. It's an amazing piece of writing, and what we had to do with 4 actors in it and continuity wise, I think is pretty awesome too. But that longest scene is then followed by 3 very short scenes that escalate in how funny they are, as Jenna's character has one baby after the other, and it just gives you this moment of sort of release to just live with these characters in sort of a fun way before you get to the next scenes, which are pretty intense. I just love all of that. I just love shooting too. I love every day we walked into this space and looked at the shot list and what are we starting with? Okay, let's figure this out. Moving on to the next thing. Let's figure this one out. I love that process. In the same way so many people love tech in the normal theater process, a lot of people love the technical process because of how much you're discovering and learning and figuring out. So.
Oh yeah. That dinner scene, I think I was going to say, was one of my favorite scenes. And I also really loved, I wish Adrian could have been with us tonight because I loved the scene of him towards the end sitting, and no spoilers, so I won't say anything else. But the scene between him and Ben just, tears me apart. Everyone needs to see it. Everyone needs to see it. Okay, so I have another question from Mary. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. Ben or Jenna, remember any of your Yiddish? Can you describe the process you used to learn those lines phonetically?
Phonetically? Oh boy. Yeah, of course I remember the Yiddish. Ich will a Zimmer, ein Ort wie schlafen. It's learning that was so hard that I think it will be ingrained in my brain for the rest of my life. And learning it phonetically, I didn't have too much of a difficulty trying to figure out how the words sounded because Yiddish steals a lot of words, or not steals, but is very similar to German in a way. And my father's German and has a very thick German accent, and he can't say squirrel, so he says squirrel, you know. But yeah, I didn't have too much of an issue. The main issue was of course figuring out the accent with Krista. What about you, Jenna?
I think it's so funny you started off with, of course I remember it. I don't. Like, not my lines in Yiddish. This came up the other day with my family. They were like, oh yeah, like, do you remember those lines? I was like, no. Like, maybe I like racked my brain. Maybe 2 of them I can pull out, like a word here and there. But like, when I finish a show, it leaves my brain. I'm always blown away by actors who can do monologues from years ago. I'm not one of those. It's gone. But beyond that, I mean, I feel like once I learn a dialect, I can like fall back into that. Like I'll be able to do a Yiddish dialect for the rest of my life, I think. And that is so fun for me. I love working on dialects, and I learned IPA last year, and that's super fun. Like everything about it is so cool and so fun to me. That was like one of my favorite parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, I hope Gregory Lush isn't watching this because he taught me IPA and I don't know like what like what sounds. I'm relearning it right now. But yeah.
Yeah, for people who don't know what IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, it's a really great way to notate dialects that many of us learn. And it's used not just in learning dialects. I think it's common in other parts of the performing arts and opera, I believe.
Opera uses it a lot too. It's also in the dictionary, like when it breaks down how to say the word.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then we just have a comment from Craig. He says he agrees with Mary. It's beautifully produced. Don't miss it December 10th through 13th. Totally agree, Craig. To finish this out, I'm honestly curious just to check in with you all. It's been a couple of months. How are you doing? What's like nourishing you right now?
All right. So
go first, Jeff. Yeah.
We stay busy at the theater because there's always something. There's one thing that hasn't changed, at least for Theater 3, is you finish one project and there's no time for nostalgia. It's moving on to the next thing. So that's been us at Theater 3. We know now what's next. Let's move on to the next thing. We've got to keep looking forward. We don't want to just remain dormant. And so that has been nourishing and tiring and frustrating and all of those things. But everyone is strained by the restrictions that have been placed on us this year and just everything. And that is hard, and it's easy to dwell and live in that. And the saving grace for us at Theater 3 is that we've been able to focus on the next project. I'll say that. However, your first love is always one of the best loves. And that's what this was in so many ways, The Immigrant, because it was the first project that large scale project that we attempted. And there was magic there because the entire group was so great, from our designers and production staff and the performers, that anytime we want to get together and chat about it in some sort of streaming format, I'm all for it because I love seeing y'all and talking about the process. So I'll see you in 30 years. Then we do the 30-year re-release. I'll be working at Dollar General, but I'll tune in. So Ben's going to take my place.
Wow. That's quite the prediction, Jeff.
Yeah, knock on wood, I'm still here in 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope that we're doing actual theater in 30 years and not actual theater. No, what am I doing? This is theater. This is theater right here. Well, not what we're doing right here, but the play. Anyway, so about how I'm doing is I just feel more busy than I've ever been in a way that I'm not happy about. I know, isn't that so terrible? I love my acting class, my acting teacher. He's utterly brilliant, that he gives me energy and he gives me life through a Zoom screen, and my voice teacher does that, and my movement teacher. But I have so many other classes, and they feel the need to give us so much and so much homework, and I'm sitting at my computer all day. And I knew 4 years ago, whenever I did like this small little internship with computers, that I was like, oh, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life, because this sucks. I hate sitting in front of a computer and looking at it all day. it's horrible. So what really makes me happy is going outside and just jogging and just running and going outside and reading plays and finding ways to remind myself I am an actor, I am a theater person, I am not a Zoom student. This is not, it's all going to get better, but just that reminder is very, very nice. Yeah.
I guess what's keeping me afloat is that I'm just so lucky to have a job that really has continued and has not been in any kind of danger because of the pandemic. And I'm so thankful for that. And I've got great students. I'm on the other end of Ben's story, not at the same institution, but I have great students that keep me hopping and trying to do my best as a theater teacher and a performance teacher. And it's nice that we've got the holidays coming up, and you get to look forward to the next time you get together with at least your immediate family, those closest to you. And so it's just a lot. These kinds of times make you thankful that, gosh, I actually got to do something in June, July in theater. How many people can say that? I actually got to do some theater during this crazy time, and not everybody can say that. So, yay.
Anyone else?
I'll go. Yeah, I feel so theater deprived, but because of that, I have been painting every day. So I'm actually using my degree, which I haven't been doing the past few years, really. So I'm trying to just pour my energy into other creative outlets during this time and get something accomplished. Selling on Etsy, doing little markets. Yeah, if 3 holiday markets next weekend. So
that's awesome.
Fun. Yeah. I like that. So just doing that mostly.
Yeah. And I'm just so psyched to see it again.
Me too. All right, guys. Well, so The Immigrant runs from December 10th through 13th. It's streaming. I have a little banner that I have prepared. You can get tickets at www.theater3dallas.com. Please see this show, especially at the start of Hanukkah. What a perfect time. I can't wait to revisit it. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to cry and laugh. It's a beautiful show, and I thank you all for your work on that, truly. All right, that'll end this. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for being on here tonight. Go see The Immigrant.
Thanks for doing this, Nicole.
Oh, sure. See y'all later.